Great. We are now live. Hi, friends, and welcome to KCRep's second ever, can you say second ever? Second ever Thursday night mixer. I'm Stuart Carden, the new artistic director of KCRep. Thanks for joining us out there, and thanks to this week's all KC lineup of theater artists and practitioners. This week we have KCRep favorite, Walter Coppage. Say hi, Walter.
Hello, good to be here.
And we also have actor, director, and artistic director of the Living Room Theater, where he's reporting from live, Rusty Sneary.
Not a KCRep favorite like Walter Coppage.
Not a KCRep favorite. I knew I was in trouble as I introduced Walter that way. I knew I was in trouble.
It's fine. No one can compete with Walter.
You pointed it out, Rusty. I so appreciated that.
That's where I am. Sorry.
Oh, right away. I'm sorry.
And not to be outdone, and we'll see if she cuts me as well. KCRep's very own director of finance, KCRep's favorite director of finance, Melanie Coleman, is with us.
Hey there. Hey.
So we're really happy that to get. I'm happy. We'll see if Rusty is.
I haven't even started drinking yet.
It all changes.
Really happy to get together to connect with Kansas City artists and theater artists. This is a social hour, a chance for us to connect with one another, and then to also connect out with you out there in Facebook land that are fans of KCRep and fans of Kansas City theater, or fans of cocktails. And we're going to start off by mixing a cocktail. And then after we mix that cocktail, and I'll tell you about that cocktail, then we're going to engage in a little creative conversation between us. And then we're going to open things up, and would love to have your questions and comments and thoughts via Facebook for us. And we're going to talk and have a drink for the next hour. And we're really grateful that you're here and that you joined us. We're drinking a Manhattan today. And this Manhattan has been sponsored by Mike's Wine and Spirits. Mike's Wine and Spirits, you may not know this, has 3 locations: Brookside, Westport, Waldo, and offers all the they are offering and sponsoring all of the ingredients for tonight's cocktail, and they're available for delivery and curbside pickup. And check out Mike's at shopmikeskc.com. Thank you, Mike's Wine and Spirits, for the cocktail. So I love Manhattans. I don't make them. So I'm hoping that you all will help me through this. So we've got the ingredients.
Let's do it.
I'll confess right away. I'm not a big drinker, so I don't.
You're not partaking.
I mean, I'm a fairly simple kind of guy: wine, beer, or gin and tonic. So this is beyond my expertise, and so I'm learning. This is going to be a good learning thing for me.
Well, Melanie and Rusty confided that they may know their way around a Manhattan. So
okay.
You guys
I don't drink a lot of whiskey typically,
I think that's a
but
lot.
I've had a Manhattan once or twice.
I think that's a lot.
Okay. I've known him for years. I just.
Okay, Melanie, start us off.
I would do a full shot glass of this. How about you, Rusty?
Yeah, I've got my jigger what here, so I'm gonna use my jigger.
Yeah, let me get my
2 ounces.
2 ounces.
Fancy.
2 ounces.
2 ounces.
2 ounces.
And it's okay if it overflows a little.
Okay.
And then do
Alright, 2
half
ounces
that
of
amount of
And I don't have anything quite.
Remove.
Okay.
Rusty, you agree?
I'm making a mess here.
Wine.
And how much of the vermouth? 1 ounce?
1 ounce.
1 ounce. Okay.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
hello.
I'm a 5-drop bitters girl. What about you, Rusty?
I just do like 1 or 2 dashes of bitters, like maybe 2 drops for me. But you know,
I do a few more.
yeah, that's
And
okay.
the one thing that I do know about Manhattans is there is some argument over should it be shaken, should it be stirred, should it be up, should it be on the rocks?
I think it
Where,
should
where
be
do you
how
all- where do you come down on that?
I think it should be however you prefer it. I think typically it's up or on the rocks.
Oh, okay.
I go back and forth depending on how fancy I'm feeling.
And then Rusty, do you ever do half dry and half sweet vermouth? To make them
No.
perfect? That's a really good way too.
I have not done that.
Yeah, try that.
I forgot my
But
my
then we
lid.
need some
Hold on.
cherry. Put a cherry or 2 in.
I'm at the
just gonna-
mixing stage. I don't have all my proper cocktail attire. So I have a chopstick and
Yeah, I've got a
crack.
weird tumbler thingy.
And I'm gonna mix mine.
Well,
I'm
I'm
stirring
gonna
it.
mix mine too because I left the top in the kitchen and it's really far away. So I'm not gonna shake. I'm just gonna mix. Just
Here we
gonna
go.
swirl.
I have a feeling this is
Yeah,
pretty
that's what I'm
strong,
going
Rusty.
for.
Looks pretty strong.
I got a big rock.
And I
Me
hope
too.
some of you are
Oh,
mixing
so-
from home.
Now, are you supposed to use a rocks glass? Because the one I looked online and the picture they had was a cocktail glass. And of course I have one, but it's.
Yes, dude.
Whatever
I think-
you'll drink it out of, Walter, whatever you'll drink it out of.
Can I do
Wal-
product placement during this?
Walter, he just said you were Kansas City Rep's favorite, and you're using an actors theater glass.
Oh, here, let me turn it around. No, it's just a glass. Yeah, because I'm not there.
Where's your
Not acting
Start
theaters.
adding additional accolades just to get myself into more trouble and say things like KCRep's all-time favorite or KCRep's only favorite.
But the guy, this is okay. The glass.
You can
Absolutely.
drink it out of that silver one.
Okay, pouring,
Ooh, pouring. Mhm.
draining.
Rusty, have you already taken a drink? You and I have been sitting here.
I'm just waiting on the cherry.
I already put
Oh,
the
cherry. That's right. There's more.
I
Cherry,
put the cherry in.
I'm dropping the cherry.
and mine's going in.
Let me get one. Ooh, and I have fancy tongs for this. Teresa has fancy tongs. Just for-
Wow.
Wow, a spoon.
Walter, I couldn't help but notice you mixed that drink in a travel cup.
Yeah. That's what
Don't
I've
get
got
any-
for
Don't get any ideas.
me. So there we go. Ooh, it's pretty.
Ooh.
Well, friends, it's good to see you all, and thanks for mixing a Manhattan with me. And cheers! Here's to brighter days.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Brighter days.
Cheers.
Here.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I've
That's
needed this for
tasty.
hours.
Ooh, that's tasty.
It's very
You
tasty.
know, as I say, I don't drink a lot of, and certainly not whiskey, but this is very.
No, it's
Tasty.
good. The sweet vermouth and the cherry and the bitters all round it out.
Mm-hmm. I can see why it's been
Sometimes-
around for quite so. I can see why it's a classic.
Mhm.
Yes.
That is good, and it makes me very happy to share a glass with each one of you and spend a little time. So I would love to kick things off now that we have a cocktail and a little bit of cocktail joy in our day to talk a little creativity and have a conversation about what you're engaged with creatively right now. And we're in this extraordinary moment where so many industries have been struck at the heart of what they do, but performing arts and theater in particular have been struck very resoundingly at the core of who we are. It's an existentially tough moment, and I think it's a financially tough moment, and it's a spiritually tough moment. And we're all going through it in different ways. So I'm feeling very much as an artist and an artistic leader, attention in my life about engaging creatively and how I'm engaging creatively right now. So I would love to start with each one of you and talk a little bit about how you're navigating this moment as a theater practitioner, a theater maker, a theater administrator, how you're navigating this moment, either in theater or out of theater creatively. I'm starting with Melanie, and Melanie, who has a real love for Kansas City artists, and her store, which it can be found online these days, was a brick and mortar, but now can be found online these days, features a lot of Kansas City artists. And you're probably, that necklace you're wearing is probably a Kansas City artist. So you're engaged,
Yes.
you're engaged creatively outside of KCRep. So how for you right now in this shelter in place moment, are you engaging creatively?
Wow. So you had to start with me, Stuart, but
Yes.
so cheers. Let's all take a sip first. Come on, everybody, Walter. So, to your point, I think one of the things I've done is I really have stayed in contact with the artist community that I have supported through my store, and just tried to find creative ways to figure out what they're doing, what they're making, how they're surviving in this moment, and what role I can play to evangelize about their work or share their work or talk to them, because I find a lot of joy and inspiration in them. And so I really do a lot of that. Outside of that, I think the other thing that's been key for me is I was never like a podcast listener or any of that kind. I never got into that, but I have found a lot of just good insight in listening to some podcasts and taking long walks out in nature and just being very, I don't want to say still, but I guess in some ways it is trying to be still inside and either take in nature or listen to whatever podcast I've got at the moment going. Those are probably the things I've been doing the most of.
Did you engage in those things beforehand? I'm going to ask this question and then I'm going to open my window because it is so hot in my room. You may hear my kids outside, but I'm going to open my window. I'm now so hot. But I'm going to ask this question first, Melanie, which is, were you already engaged in, did you go for hikes? Was this a part of how you engaged? Or are you just doing more of it? Or were podcasts or going out on nature walks something that you started to do in this shelter in place moment? I'm opening the window.
I would say the reason I did them has changed. Before, I would say I exercised or did something like that for a purpose of, I want to exercise. I need to get through this process. I need to do this. But I would say now I do them for a whole different reason. And before that, I was not listening to podcasts, but I really have found a couple. There's one, I'm not giving a plug to one, but there's one by Guy Raz about how I built this. And he has done a series on resilience, and he has spoken to people. He spoke to the representative for Jay-Z when Jay-Z was like 15 years old and undiscovered. And just hearing those stories, I have found little nuggets in each one of them of how to be more resilient and how to continue to kind of persevere in this moment.
That's great.
We could all use some tips on resilience at this moment.
For sure.
That's awesome. How about for you, Walter? You spend, how many weeks a year would you say you spend in a rehearsal room or on stage? And now in a shelter in place moment where you can't do those things, how has your biology changed? How has your chemistry changed? And what are you engaged in?
Well, that's interesting. I put it that your chemistry, your biology, because it was something I was thinking about earlier. I mentioned it to my wife that I saw a post from a guy I worked with in Portland just recently, the stage manager, Mike Diamond. And he said, how did he put it? He said, I'm so used to always having a project in front of me. And for those
Walter, this is the director in me.
Forward.
Find your light and give us a little more breath support.
All right, let me get. All right. Okay, so
we're just having a little trouble hearing you.
don't you love it? I get
The man,
Well,
yeah.
More importantly, take a drink, Walter. Take a drink.
Thank you for the directions.
The man with the God voice. We
The
can't
man
hear.
with the God voice. Yeah, usually I'm being told to quiet down by my wife all the time. When she's in her Zoom sessions, I got to shut the hell up. One thing he said was that I'm so used to having something in front of me, a project in front of me, the next play, the next show, that I never look back. But not having anything in front of me, all I can do is look back at what I had 2 months ago and grieve. And I thought, wow, that's a really interesting thing. And I think that's kind of what was happening to me a little bit, was that not having something directly in front of a project that I'm going to work on in the next month. I had a tendency to look back and feel a little nostalgic for what happened, and oh my gosh, everybody lost their shows, and what could have been with that show, and those kinds of things, which I don't think normally as actors we do. I mean, we don't.
Yeah.
We move on to the next project, or as artists, we move on to the next project. And being in this kind of limbo land with no project, what do you do? And so I was fortunate in that when I first came, because when this all came down, I was in Portland, and I was there for an additional week after the show had closed, and came back, and within like 48 hours, Kansas City was in lockdown, so I didn't see anybody in Kansas City. So I feel very disconnected from everybody here, and very disconnected from theater. And I mean, because seasons were being planned, auditions were happening, and I was out of town, and then it all kind of fell apart. So coming back, what I think mostly been trying to do is reconnect with people, see what theaters are doing, see how people are doing. I mean, I'm just, I know like Rusty was going through a big major change, but we had no connection, but I could just view it from afar. It was a very weird feeling watching everything change in Kansas City from a distance. And so I felt disconnected, and then to come back and truly be disconnected. So I think for me, it's trying to lean into groups like this thing, taking Zoom meetings, contacting people via phone that I haven't in a long time. I think I find myself reaching out to more actors via Facebook Messenger than I have in a very long time. And maybe it's because I'm not as busy that I have the opportunity to do that. So I'm in some ways, I'm connecting more with a lot of people that I haven't been in contact with in a while. The other thing was whatever project I did have in front of me, I got lucky and had a couple of auditions. Boy, did I lean into those auditions, oh boy, I have a play to read and some sides to learn. So I found myself really digging into those things, but that's only so much. So I think, it's been hard to navigate how to keep yourself creatively active. So I've been viewing them too. That's the other thing, is I've been watching everybody else's work. Kyle Hadley's Frankenstein, seeing the stuff that's coming up through the National Theater on YouTube. And so I've tried to lean into watching what other people are doing, especially other people who, so many artists that create their own content, and it's up online. So I've been.
No, that's that really resonates and is really interesting. This idea of, our art form inherently is evanescent. It's here and gone, and there's a bit of, I think, that's built into the way that we work. And if we're lucky enough to have a career where we're going from project to project, telling one story, moving on to another, you pour yourself into one show, you live inside of it, you give of yourself emotionally, physically, mentally, and then you have the next vessel hopefully waiting for you, and you pour yourself into that. And that really resonates with me, Walter, that this idea of looking back is something that we don't, I feel like we don't do. We don't look back and relive and reflect on those past projects, because our work is so much about being in the moment and about exploring a new story and inhabiting a new story that it feels it's a new place to live in, to be thinking about the past and to be thinking about work that we've done and stories that we've told. And it's been an interesting space of reflection for me, and that really resonates.
That's
How about for you, Rusty? Or do you want to jump in?
I'll jump in on that and then segue. But that's interesting, Stuart, that you say that, because as he was saying, as Walter was starting to talk about that, I was thinking in my head as an actor, like I always have this incubation period, like, you know, after something closes or comes down, it's always like the next few weeks or like a month later, I go like, there it is. Like, you know, and so there's always this kind of period where I'm not focused on it like I had been for weeks, but because it's still there.
Yeah.
My subconscious is still teaching me things and I'm still learning about it. So there's part of this that just kind of feels like one long incubation period, which can be on one hand torturous and on the other hand, I think really like really good. Like we can learn from it in a lot of ways. And like Melanie was saying, like our brain is so hungry for consultation and just comfort and, you know, anything that puts it at ease. And, you know, and so like I've kind of felt that a little bit where it's these things I am thinking back a lot and being very introspective on projects and things of the past. I mean, it doesn't help that I'm also tearing up 10 years of past projects at the moment, but like,
yes.
But I feel like I am learning.
Yeah, you are not only doing that in your mind's eye and in your imagination and in your psyche.
Yeah.
And metaphorically, you are doing it physically right now. For those of you out there that know Rusty well, he's the artistic director of the Living Room Theater, and is in the middle of a transition, leaving. He's in there right now, and leaving that space, and we're getting a pan's eye view, and then collaborating in a new space and venture in the West Bottoms, right? I'm still so new, I have to like think about what I say.
It's kind of weird when you put the emphasis on West.
West.
Well, the East Bottoms is a different.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, you don't
West Bottoms.
Is there an East Bottoms?
West, yes.
There is actually.
Okay.
That's where this,
You're somewhat justified in it, but it's
Okay.
like you're speaking phonetically.
There's something about the way you said it, Stuart, that made me think about bottoms more than I normally do.
Well, yeah, give the director some direction. So where do I put my emphasis? Where do I put my emphasis?
I don't know. I think I always say West Bottoms.
Okay.
It's just equal.
I'm gonna keep up with mine though.
I kind of like yours better.
So
I think I prefer yours.
so you are literally doing some of the things that we're talking about metaphorically. Right?
Yeah. Well, and you know, and that's it's been really strange because before all of this happened, my world was already kind of upside down, and my routine honestly hasn't changed that much, like other than Noises Off, which we were all really excited about. Like that being postponed or canceled was really the only big shake for me, which was a big shake, but it also at the same time was like, well, I have a very big project that I should be focusing on, so maybe I should just get to it. But I've been just coming to work like I typically do, and have been pretty busy. And there's just been, I mean, other than big work calls and stuff that I was planning on having, there's just been a few of us kind of day by day, step by step, making little dents. But it's been really strange. I've been, taking a lot of the anxiety and frustrations out with a sledgehammer because there's a lot of things to go in a dumpster, which has been really rewarding. I've also kind of gotten to play like apocalyptic shopkeeper in this weird way. Like I've got all these things and people are coming in randomly with masks on and gloves. And I'm like, well, what do you need? A lamp? You need a lamp? What do you need for the end times? You wanted this chair? Like, I mean, I have like, it's so weird.
I went straight to a costumer. I want a costumer to costume you as the apocalyptic shopkeeper so that you have your own.
Well, I mean, there for a while, you know, it was kind of just like, you know, bandana. And then I was sporting a bungee cord around my neck because you never know when you're going to need a bungee cord. Yeah.
Well,
you know, but you know, we're all struggling right now with identity. So you've got to find one that's not you.
It's well, what are there things that you're consuming creatively? We've kind of transitioned into this already, but are there things that you're consuming creatively right now that you that perhaps you did less of and you're doing more of right now? I really, and I shared this last week, but it is proving to be my saving grace in this moment, that after our twins go to bed and we get them to bed, I go listen to a whole album on a walk. I go out in my neighborhood, listen to an album from beginning to end, sometimes going back, but also introducing myself to a lot of new music. And I haven't for many years had or given myself the permission to have the time to listen to an album from beginning to end. And that has been something I look forward to every day. And it is something that rejuvenates me and keeps me creatively alive, is knowing at the end of the day, I'm gonna be able to go on the journey of an album while out on a walk. So are there things that you all are engaged with creatively, consuming creatively right now that you're doing more of?
I think that's really great. That feels to me, Stuart, like just an escape, you know, that escape that we as artists especially become so attached to having in our lives, and being able to step out of where we are and just experience something, which is so cool. I very quickly panicked about just kind of my creative sanity and keeping those muscles active and not atrophied, and in the midst especially of everything else and the rest of the stress that was happening. So I very quickly kind of reached out and offered monologue workshops online through Zoom. Just pay what you can. And so I had a big I hear my own voice. Jennifer, help me.
You sound good here.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so I had a lot of people reach out for that, and it's like saved a lot of my sanity, just teaching and the director brain in me staying active. And just, it's also like this table, if you could see it right now, is just full of scripts that I went back into boxes that I'd had and just pulled out and dug out and started leafing through and finding things. And it just like, it was good. It was really good. And it's been really great. And it's taught me that it's something that I can do. I was really scared about it at first. And like, do I have an hour of things to say or teach? And turns out that I have a lot of things to say. So it's something that I'm definitely will continue doing.
That's I think an amazing moment for those of us that that have come to teaching after being working artists, is what you just described, Rusty, is that moment, you know, you build up the sense of nerves of, am I going to be able to, what am I going to offer these students, or what am I going to offer to someone that is early career, that is looking for advice on process or advice on technique or just advice on the industry. And that is a really nice moment when you step in and you recognize, oh, I've been living this, and what I have to share has value, and what I have to share is just truth to me.
Right. To me, anyway.
Yeah, to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I've done, because you get to see it on the backside of some of the Zoom calls, since I spend a lot of my day in, you know, with my head in spreadsheets or talking to bankers or this or that. Um, I I love to paint, and I don't mean paint murals or anything like that or paint anything fancy. I love to paint. So I think I have become best friends with the person that works at Sherwin-Williams in Westport, because I think I have I think I'm on my third room, my eighth color or something like that. So, I mean, we're like no drop cloth, no tape, none of that shit. I just get on the ladder and I am
Really?
painting.
You are just freestyling, huh?
And I turn on whatever music moves me of the moment. You know, right now I'm on a Jackson Brown kick, and
Yes.
it just transports me to another place in time. And it's midnight and I'm deciding I don't really want that room to be red. We're going yellow tomorrow. So that has been I think the word is cathartic. And I don't know if
Yeah.
it's a combination of music and painting. And because I'm a person that I like to see a finished product. So
Yeah.
I can step back and go, that room's beautiful, or I hate that.
Yeah.
We're starting over. I'm doing something different.
That's big. Yeah.
It's been fun for me, and it's very.
I can attest to this, because one of week one on a Zoom call, when we're in the heart of the hardest part of understanding the financial impact of this on the theater, in the background there's test colors on the back of Melanie's wall. She got to it immediately, which I think is amazing.
Need your priority. I'm right with you, Melanie. That was the first thing I did when I came back into town, was to paint my dining room. Partly it was a project that was supposed to be done by my son and my wife while I was in Portland.
Yeah.
But of course, I'm back unemployed, but there was something about being able to, like you said, there's the physical, kind of like what Rusty was talking about, getting it out with a sledgehammer. There's a physical, doing manual labor, physical labor, gets it out, but there's also that finished product afterwards that you can look at and see that it's done. Yeah, I'm finding myself, I'm doing things that I thought I would be doing when I retire. I'm going through photos. The basement is fairly clean. This is really scary stuff. I'm well into cleaning the garage. This is bad. This is but
I think there's something, and this may be just my pet theory or my own self-analysis, but I think there is something about theater artists. We I think in really a lot of positive ways. We thrive in ambiguity, and we thrive in the unknown and the in-between in the work that we do. And yet I think there's also the need and desire at times for things that can just be finished and completed and solved, and you look at it and it's done and it made sense, and I love following instructions of if you want to send me something to build with detailed crazy instructions, I'm so happy about it, because I love be like the one-to-one, do this, and you end up with this. And I think there is something in like the push-pull of being a theater artist, that we spend so much of our time living in ambiguity, and we spend so much of our time living in that really wonderful space of collaboration where things aren't completely solid. They're always moving and shifting. And there's another part of us that wants the clarity. I love to pack a grocery bag at the grocery. Like I like that tangible, do this, put them in this order, it's done, and you see the fruits of your labor.
Yeah.
Walter, I don't know about you.
Walter, it sounds like you're fulfilling a lot of those tangible, concrete.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Completion.
Yeah, I mean, and I bet my wife would just walk the door. We've been out in the yard a lot. I mean, I've worked more in the yard in this last month than I have in the last 5 years. I'm out there all the time. And there's something about getting the bushes trimmed and that sense of completion. And I think there is something to the fact that as theater artists, we like that. I was just talking to an actor who works a lot in film, that I said, you know, the thing that's frustrating for me with film is I can't control anything. I can't control my performance. I mean, I go and I shoot for a day or two, and whatever takes they decide to use, it comes out, and we don't shoot it in order, and then it's done, and then 2 years later I see the product. Right. Whereas with theater, every night I go in and I know exactly what's going to happen, and I know exactly how it's going to end. We're going to go from beginning to end every night. We tell that story from beginning to end, and there's such a sense of completion, and I think there's something in me that likes that.
Well, and it's there's the orderly part, I think, too, but there is also that part that I think we are also best prepared for in a way for this, because there is that part that we as theater artists have grown accustomed to, and that is the unknown, like Stuart was saying, that spontaneity, that danger of being in the moment and not knowing what's coming, but trusting that we know how to react to it honestly and move forward with it and still get to that next fence post that we need to get to. And I think that is a built-in resilience that we have, at least as actors, that is incredibly helpful, I think, right now, just at least mentally. And thinking about this, like, you know, I feel like this thing right now is just the waiting in the wings part, you know, like where the curtain is being held, we're waiting in the wings. But I don't know about you, Walter, but like sometimes waiting in the wings, the performance is much better than it ever is when I step on stage. But it's just, you know, and that anticipation and that adrenaline that you have and that just wind up, you know, like this just feels to me like one big wind up that we're just waiting on. And as long as we keep all of those things firing that we naturally know how to do and innately do as artists, then once that pitch is thrown, we're going to hit this thing harder than we've ever hit it before as an artist, you know, all of us, I think. And man, we're going to come out of the gate strong. And there's something really exciting about this, which sounds so crazy and in the midst of all this tragedy, and it's super scary, but you know, the optimist in me tries to look forward and think about what's going to come from this. And I think what's going to come from this, whenever that may be, is all of us being really geared up to be the best artists that we may have never achieved without this, and knock it out of the park. That was a lot more baseball metaphors than I intended.
I appreciate it. I mean, baseball's been canceled too.
That's not really my thing typically. I'm not a guy that typically makes baseball metaphors. Sorry, everybody.
You made a lot of them in there. A lot of them. We're halfway in on Manhattan.
Yeah, I mean, baseball season's been canceled. We make it up with some metaphors. It's awesome. That's really beautifully said.
Yeah, it is. Actually.
I haven't thought of it quite in that way, and I've been thinking about the coming back together as, you know, seeing people leave sidewalk chalk messages for one another, seeing people do impromptu concerts in the neighborhood, seeing folks go out and just so desirous of connection and longing for connection. I've just been thinking about that moment when what we do that's being attacked right now and disrupted right now is going to be the thing that people most want, as to be in a space together and to be taken on a journey and to experience with their neighbors and reflect with their neighbors on a story well told in the room. And I've just been thinking about that hunger that I feel. That's the wind up that I've been thinking about, is like that community collective.
Yeah.
Well, just think about
Build.
when you're out on your walks or whatever, how many times do people, you know, how many times before would you have walked on the sidewalk and not noticed that there was somebody sitting on their front porch and said hello to them?
Yeah.
Because you were just so focused on, I got to get my 10,000 steps or whatever you're trying to accomplish. But yet now we're taking a pause and we're greeting one another, and we're smiling at one another, and we're extending a hand to one another. And that, to me, that's going to be the goodness, the purity that's going to come out of this.
Yeah.
That is coming out of this.
The mayors of our front sidewalk, my twins Dashiell and Griffin, have up a silly walk zone on our front sidewalk. People cannot pass by unless they deliver a silly walk.
Yes.
It's been the best thing ever for me, because I'm sitting up here in my office and all day long, people that you would never imagine would do it. They're doing it whether they think someone's watching or not, because the desire to connect, to be playful, the desire to engage creatively is so fundamental to who we are. And so signs of things like that give me a lot of optimism.
Oh
yeah, especially the resilience of these young ones. I mean, Teresa and I, my son will be 27 tomorrow, so we are not experiencing what you're experiencing at home, Stuart. Of this of having to not only parent but also be teacher and to have them all this time. And what I'm seeing, these kids, this is hard for them. This is really hard for them, and they're incredibly resilient, and they're finding a way. And I'm just amazed at that. Just amazed at it. Bravo to you parents. I have no idea how you're doing this. Last week, speaking of which, Vanessa and you guys were sharing stories about how you're doing this. That's amazing.
It is amazing.
Kudos to you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all feeling new pressures, and with those pressures come opportunities, and also those pressures cause fissures and fractures. But there's also opportunities, and there's lots of positives that are coming from this as well.
And I was wondering about that. Are you feeling that? I mean, because I felt it's been a pretty busy schedule over the last few years, which I was very grateful for. But to have a little bit of a break, I've found myself connecting more. I mean, Teresa, we're forced together in this thing, but it's been good. And it's been a chance to be able to kind of re-examine and to recognize each other outside of the space that we were living before, when we're very, very busy, which is that, okay, we're partners in this, and we're kind of giving each other information, and certainly we're loving and we're caring, but it's in passing almost always. And now it's this, she's working, and my wife works at Children's Mercy, but there was at least 2 weeks where she was home, and so I thought this could cause friction, and actually it's been, God bless her. She's an incredibly patient woman, but I'm sure she can only take so much. But it's actually
Walter is always at home. First of all,
I have no one to perform for but her.
Amazing on her that. So she going into the hospital?
Yes, she works at Children's Mercy, so she
amazing. Love to her, and thank you to her.
She would quickly say that it's nothing like those people on the front lines, but I certainly feel like
nonetheless.
But still, she's
Oh God, yes. I mean, and I've always felt that. My wife is she works with children who are in terrible situations. I'm a clown, okay? My wife does incredible stuff. But the connect. I think that's happening with a lot of families. Is that?
Yeah, I think so too. I'm gonna open things up. Rusty or Walter, I think you froze for a second.
Walter's frozen on my head.
Everybody be Walter.
Yeah, everybody be Walter.
Oh, you're back. You're back.
Rusty, that was my acting debut.
That was fun. Yay, it was really good.
So we've got some comments that I'm going to run through, and some questions that I'm going to run through now. So Cynthia Barchers, I hope I pronounced that correctly, wrote, some of my favorite KC people. Thank you for all the years of sharing your talents. Can't wait to get back in the rep seats. I got a note from Jen. Thank you, Jen. Reminded me to double down on a reminder that we're drinking Rieger's whiskey. We're drinking Rieger's whiskey with this.
Rieger's.
John,
Bottoms.
forgive me if I mispronounce your last name. John Gibalisco says cheers from Omaha Community Playhouse.
Hey.
Hello, John. Great
Omaha.
to connect with other theater artists in the community and in the region. This seems like a very specific question. Oh, and I'm going to make this comment.
I'm scared.
I am too. Who's it directed at? So the rest of us can have it.
Rusty. This is very specific to Rusty.
For Rusty, okay.
Walter, cheers, Walter. Cheers, Walter.
But first, Melanie, everyone wants Melanie to come and paint their rooms. Everyone is,
I
and
work
also
for
everyone is analyzing our astrological signs. That
Oh,
I would
really?
love
Everyone?
to hear about that. I would love to hear about that.
I don't.
But here's the very specific question for Rusty. This
Oh,
has
no.
to be an inside joke. This is from Mike Ott.
Oh no.
I'm new, so I don't know anyone. And he asks, Rusty, I hope this is appropriate for, I don't know the inside jokes. I hope this is appropriate.
We'll see, Stuart.
If I
Your
wanted
show.
to watch a movie about Jeffrey Dahmer, do you have
Oh.
one that you would recommend?
No, never. I have never watched any movies about Jeffrey Dahmer, Mike. Thank you for your question.
As a friend.
Our friend,
Take a drink, Rusty. I think you should
I'm
take
going
a
to move on from that. I knew it was trouble when I saw the question pop up, but I'm going to move on from that. Vanessa, our friend Vanessa from last week's
From
session.
last week.
From last week. That's what she's known for.
Vanessa from last week.
on-
Is that what we're going to be known as next week?
yeah,
You know,
next week will be known as last week.
Is she gonna ask us about about gardening and lettuce?
There's going to be some. She's actually going to. Yeah, she's wondering if we're available.
If we want any lettuce?
lettuce delivery. Yes.
Yes.
That was a featured item from.
I remembered that, yeah.
I forgot that part.
What theater? I love this question, Vanessa. You're awesome. What theater experience did you first witness that shaped you?
Oh,
What theater experience?
I can answer that one. Can I go?
Melanie.
So I grew up in a really small town in central Missouri. So theater was candidly not part of my life as a young person. So I came to Kansas City, and that's really when I got introduced to theater. And still probably to this day, my favorite theater moment was at the Coterie Theater seeing the wrestling season. And it was just a magical play that for me spoke to how every young person struggles with their identity, and whether that identity struggle is from bullying or self-image or sexuality or divorced parents or whatever your scenario is. But I was not a mother yet, but I was about to become a mother at that point, and that really had a profound impact on me. So that one is clear to me, the wrestling season at the Coterie, for sure.
Amazing. That's amazing. Shout out to the Coterie Theater. That for a lot of people, that was their first theater experiences with the Coterie, and much love to them out there as they're navigating this moment as well. That's awesome, Melanie. I love it. Rusty or Walter,
Can you repeat the question?
what theater experience did you first witness that shaped you?
God, there's so many.
I know.
I'm still being shaped by theater experiences.
I didn't say it
There was just off the top of my head, so we keep this moving, and I don't sit here contemplating, but there was a production I saw in New York of, I think it was Hamlet, and it was by the Wooster Group, which is this really experimental theater company in New York. And the thing was crazy. Like, it had this huge projection screen behind it where they were actually playing, I'm going to screw this up, some old version movie of Hamlet they were playing.
Yeah.
And the actors were all on stage, and all the furniture that they had were on casters on wheels. And so they were playing out the scenes live on stage, but completely replicating what was behind them on the screen image wise. So even when like the screen zoomed in, they would roll forward and all the scenery would roll forward. So it would keep the perspective of what was happening. And it just like, it blew my mind because I honestly can't tell you much about it other than walking out going, you can do anything. Like it just was like a cool thing that I imagined someone sitting around going like, what if we did this? And wouldn't that be cool? But it was just like so simple, but yet really complex of how they did it. And I just like, I don't know. I think it just was one of those moments that kind of broke the construct for me of what the guidelines of theater have to be or should be, and that it could be much more expansive than I thought it would be in my head. Yeah. And then the other, like, there was another quick thing that I think shaped me as an actor, because I came up and for a while was a very much of a method actor, which is not a good thing, boys and girls. And I did a production in 2004 of Take Me Out at the Unicorn. And in this show, I got so invested in this character, I think just because I didn't trust myself with the technique enough to not go into it that deep. But Scott Cordes would drag me off stage every night at the end of this play, and I would literally throw up in the dressing room every performance because I had gotten myself worked up into a place. And I remember during that show, near the end of it, me thinking like, this isn't good. You have to figure out how to actually be an actor and not just do this. And that changed everything for me. So that's
amazing.
That's
Thanks for sharing that. That's amazing. How about for you, Walter?
Like Rusty, there's so many. I don't know, I guess early on, very early on, I didn't come from a background of parents who went to theater or even went to movies much. I mean, so most of my influences was television. As far as acting, and it would be a little bit before I realized, oh, that's a job that these guys had. But I never really thought, and especially I guess the era that I was growing up, that it was a job for me. And it was in high school somewhere that I don't know, but it might have even been freshman year. But early on in high school, and it was one of those assemblies, first thing in the morning, you go to your first class, they immediately shuffle you into the auditorium, you're not even awake, and then the next thing you know, there's a voice on, coming, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a company that's going to perform some Shakespeare, please stay in your seats, and everyone's, it's Romeo and Juliet. And then these poor bastards jump up and they start doing Romeo and Juliet. I don't remember anything about it other than I was riveted. They were so committed to doing what they were doing. They didn't give a shit that we weren't paying attention or, talking and yelling and those of us that were watching. And in particular, I remember the balcony scene. It was, in my mind then, brilliant. Probably wasn't, but they were just, hey, they learned their lines. They were very committed. And I just remembered their eyes. And how their eyes were locked on each other in the midst of all of these people talking, not really paying. They were totally committed to each other. And I don't think I registered that yet, but whatever that was happening on stage was cool. And I wanted to see how to get in on that. That looked like fun, and it was cool. And then there were sword fights. I mean, so I just thought, how do I do this? And I had no clue. There was no theater department at my high school. There was a theater club that was run by a gentleman named Dick Pond, who directed out at Theater and Park. Every year I signed up, and every year I was the only student that ever signed up for 4 years. No theater. So I go into college as a theater major with no experience. I've done one play in the summer at a community theater. But during that summer, I did go to the fledgling theater, the Coterie Theater. It was brand new. And it was on the second floor of the Crown Center.
Yeah.
They were doing Winnie the Pooh. They
Yeah.
had like suggestions of costumes. Like Pooh had like the Pooh head. That was it, you know, and like some they did in a
Sweatpants.
brilliant. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. They were brilliant. And I left the theater. I'm a senior in high school, I believe. Yeah, I'm just getting ready to graduate. I'm leaving, and the guy who played Tigger is standing at the bus stop in front of Crown Center. I rolled down the window, and I yelled at him, "Hey man, I just saw you on the show. You were incredible. Oh my God, you were Tigger." And he's going, "Yeah." And I went, "Can I give you a ride?" And he looks at me. He's like, "No, good. I'm good. I'm gonna catch the bus." "Where are you going?" "Well, I'm going to school. I go to school at UMKC. "I'll give you a ride. Please get in my car. I just want to know how to be an actor."
It's creepy, Walter.
That's creepy.
And this guy goes,
Poor
"Okay."
Tigger.
He gets in my car. And I just litter him with questions. I want to be an actor. I don't know how to do it. I don't know anything about it. He starts talking. "Okay, first thing, settle down." You know, you go to school, all that. And I remember dropping him off and being so filled and inspired that I was going in the right place. I'm going to become a theater major. And it was just an incredible moment. That poor bastard. I mean, God bless him.
God,
God bless him.
Well,
wonderful thing about Tigger.
I feel like everyone.
Find your Tigger.
I feel
Find
like
your Tigger.
that is an amazing moment, especially if you haven't grown up around artists. That first experience of like seeing someone on stage and then connecting just in everyday life, and you put it together of, oh, this is a thing that is a profession, and this is a thing you learn. It's a craft, and this is something that you can do as both a mode of expression, but also as a livelihood. And like, it is a crazy moment of connection when you put those two things together. So we are almost at time, and I have one final question for each one of you. Vanessa, I will call you later because I'm sure you're dying to know what theater experience shaped me as an artist.
Seriously, that sucks. No, skip the final question. Can we skip the final question and just hear that?
No, we have less than 2 minutes. And so the final question that I have is, and I do this every week. You will be last week next week. So,
Exactly.
so I will answer that question next week. So my question is, when we're able to get past this moment, when we're able to be social again, when we're able to go out again, what are you going to eat? What are you going to drink? And what are you going to experience on the other side of this? Melanie went first last time. So this time I'm going with Rusty.
I'm going to eat some fried chicken.
Where?
You haven't played the mind?
Doesn't matter. I love fried chicken. I'm gonna drink. I'm just gonna drink, which is very different than what I'm doing now. And honestly, the experience is maybe like I'm not gonna drink or eat fried food and maybe like get everything working again. How's that?
That was perfect.
Oh,
Perfect.
God.
Walter,
Rusty
eat,
took
drink,
all the
experience.
good ones. He took fried chicken and drinking and not drinking. Food-wise, man, there's so many good.
So many.
In KC. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what am I going to eat? Everything. Probably, I'm going to eat everything. I'm going to go out all the time. I'm going to hit all the locals. Drink-wise, probably the same kind of thing. I want to, definitely try to support the locals. The experience I'm looking forward to is I want to go see your show, and I mean everybody's show. Something I've been thinking about is every time in the past years that I've said, God, I just got out of rehearsal. I'm so tired, but so and so shows up. I'll catch it. They'll get it done. I regret every one of those, right?
Yeah.
Every one of those are regret.
All the shows.
That the experience I look forward to seeing your show.
This is not only live, this is recorded. So we're gonna hold you to this later.
Yeah, that's
When I
right.
don't see your show, it's because it was stinky. I'm sorry.
Melanie,
I'm gonna eat at Port Fonda. I'm gonna have a Manhattan at Pierpont's. And I'm
Yes.
gonna go see a live concert at Grinders, Knuckleheads, the Uptown, and the Midland, all in one night.
yes,
Yeah.
I love it.
Live music. Yes, live music.
Live music.
You all are amazing.
You're
Thank
amazing.
you so much for joining me for this conversation and sharing a little bit about what you're up to and giving us some insights into your lives. I really appreciate it, each and every one of you. It's so good to spend a little time with you. Melanie, thank you. Walter,
Thank you.
Rusty,
Thank you.
thank you. This has been so great. Also, thanks to Mike's Wine and Spirits for hooking us up with the makings of several Manhattans. We appreciate that. You know where to find them. And then we're doing this weekly. And we're having more conversations with KC theater artists and KC crafted drinks at our Thursday mixer. So join us next week for another one of these sessions with some of the other Kansas City rep favorites.
Other than Walter.
Other than me.
but it's great that you joined us. Thanks so much. Rusty, Melanie, Walter, cheers and thanks.
Cheers.
Here's some brighter days and see you at the theater.
Yes, indeed. See you soon.